So anterior cruciate ligament reconstruction surgery, like any other surgery, can have its complications. So we'll talk about them. We'll take this lecture step by step. We'll talk about the complications during graft harvesting, during ACL procedure, immediately after the surgery, and delayed complications. During graft harvesting, if we are using the patellar graft, there can be patellar fracture. It should be treated like any other patellar fracture, like open reduction and internal fixation in this example. And after you have fixed the patella, you can continue with your procedure. However, we should try to prevent this complication. The tips are, we should never use the chisel for harvesting the graft. We should use always a saw with appropriate sized blade of the saw. And after we have harvested the graft, we should fill the defect in the patellar side by taking a cancellous bone from the bone plug, which was harvested from the tibial side. Sometimes during harvesting of the graft, one may swear the bone plug, separate the bone plug from the tendon. So in that case, you can do the piggyback fashion, like in this case, or you can use the baseball or Krakow sutures, and on one side, you can use the soft tissue fixation. In case of soft tissue graft, one can have a complication of early amputation. And if it happens, you can augment this graft with either gracilis, or you shift to the other type of graft, or you can harvest the graft from the other side. We should be able to always prevent this complication. The main thing is that we should always look for these accessory insertions, which are mainly present in the semi-T side, and we should swear these insertions before using the tendon harvester. Then we will never get this complication. Sometimes you have prepared the graft. While handing over the graft to the scrub nurse, you may drop the graft on the floor. It can be a very serious complication. And I always remember this, and I always remind my team every time I do the procedure. At the time of graft harvesting, I tell them, please do not drop the graft. So make it a habit. And secondly, use the same team. Do not change the team again and again. And every time you repeat it. Of course, every team member should know that it is so important that the graft should not be thrown on the floor. How it drops on the floor is, it gets dropped between the trolley and the operation table. So what happens is, you are handing over the graft to the scrub nurse. You think that you are handed it over to her, but actually the graft is still sticking to your glove. So when you take your hand back towards the operation table, you throw the graft. So make it a protocol that always hand over the graft in a basin with an instrument and not in the hand. So if you actually drop it, what should you do? You can either change to the other type of graft or other side of the, that is the contralateral side of the limb for harvesting the graft. But what I did in my first case was, I cleaned it with saline and betadine and Sidex, and then cleaned it with this saline again, and then used it. Luckily, we did not have post-operative infection. And then when I looked at the literature, this is a standard technique that you can clean the graft like this. But the best is you do not drop it. Now, the complications during the tunnels, that is on the femoral tunnel, there may be a posterior blowout if the posterior wall is too thin. So you should always aim for having an adequate posterior wall. If it happens, you can change the fixation from interference screw to the endo button, or you can use an incision on the lateral side of the thigh and fix the graft by a screw from outside in. And in this case, if you use the second type, that is the lateral side screw in, then the graft should go more up in the femoral tunnel before you fix it. How to prevent it? You should always use a proper offset guide, and then before you actually drill the tunnel, you make an impression with the reamer, and then you see whether the posterior wall is adequate or not, and then you make the tunnel. Sometimes there may be difficulty in passing the graft to the tunnel. Normally it should pass very smoothly, but this only happens if the graft size is thicker than tunnel. It happens if you have soaked the graft in the saline, it gets swollen up. So you should never soak the graft in saline. You should always wrap the graft with a gauze which is soaked in saline. The gauze is soaked in saline and then squeezed well so that the saline does not go into the graft. Then there can be a graft tunnel length mismatch. It usually happens in BPTB graft where the femoral plug has gone into the femoral tunnel, but the tibial plug is lying outside the tibial tunnel. So you either advance more graft into the femoral tunnel. If there is a space in the femoral condyle, you advance the tunnel and advance the graft. Or you can make a trough in the tibia and fix it with a staple. Or what I usually do is I rotate the graft on the tibial side. After fixation on the femoral side, I rotate the graft on the tibial side by 540 degrees, and then the graft gets shortened, and then you can fix it with a screw. Or you can fold the graft over a bone plug. So this is the example after, rotating the graft, it looks like this. It's a good technique. Or you can remove the bone plug on the tibial side and use the Krakow sutures, and you can fix on the tibial side like a soft tissue graft. Then if the tibial tunnel is too anterior, the patient will have either a flexion deformity, and even during extension, the patient may have pain. So you should always not do it. The placement of the tunnels should be very accurate. And if it has happened, and if you have recognized on the table, and if it is slightly interior, you can insert a screw anterior to the graft that will push the graft slightly posteriorly. And secondly, you can make the notch a little bigger. But if it is significantly posterior, then this does not work. So ideally, we should drill the tunnel at the exact accurate point. How you decided? This is the posterior border of the anterior horn of the lateral meniscus. You take your tip of the guide along the posterior border, and when you go in front of the PCL, that is the place where your jig should lie. And secondly, after you have drilled the guide wire, you can check it whether it will be interior or not. Do a full extension, and you see that the tip of the guide wire goes right into the femoral notch. That means it is the right place. So this is again showing the right landmark. That is the posterior border of the anterior horn of the lateral meniscus in line with in front of the PCL. So now the femoral tunnel, if it is slightly interior, again you can push a screw into the tunnel anteriorly and the graft will be pushed posteriorly. But if it is far interior, then you have to make a new tunnel. So this is the example, which patient was a young athlete who was operated around 1 year back at a peripheral center, and then he had an insufficiency of the ACL. So when we did the MRI, the tunnel was too interior in the femoral side. So this is the arthroscopic picture. Look at the original tunnel. It's too interior as well as vertical also. So this is the over the top position, and this is the actual point where it should be. So we did not remove this graft, but we drilled another tunnel at the bifurcation of the lateral condylar ridge and the bifurcate ridge. So we used this tunnel for the graft, and this is the previous graft which is lying anteriorly and more vertically. This is the new graft which we have inserted. This problem only happens if you accidentally take the residence ridge as the over the top position. So in some patients, the residence ridge is too prominent. So you should be careful and you should try to debride the residence ridge so that you can actually see the over the top position, that is the posterior border of the femoral condyle, so that you do not get this complication. Then the next complication can be jamming of the reamer. What happens is we usually use the old guide wires which have been used previously a number of times. So they get bent and then the reamer can jam into it. If you are not careful, then the guide wire is going in with the reamer. Like in this case, it can injure the femoral condyle. So before you actually use the guide wire, you should see by passing the guide wire into the cannulated reamer whether it is going freely or not. If it is not going, then you discard the guide wire and use a new guide wire. Then there can be neurovascular injury. As we know, it's a rare complication, but it is a very serious complication. The neurovascular bundle is lying exactly posterior to the posterior horn of the lateral meniscus. So when you are working in this area, especially in the area of the femoral tunnel, you should try to avoid using the rotatory instruments like the shaver and the burrs. So better to use the curette. Then compartment syndrome, again, a very rare complication, but if you don't recognize, it can be again a very, very catastrophic complication. I got this complication only once in my lifetime, but you have to be very aggressive and do the fasciotomy if you get this complication. Infection, again, not very common, but it does happen. So in some cases, the patients, they also have the aseptic reaction, like this international athlete had this weeping kind of a wound for almost 6 months. Although she did not have any symptoms in the knee, she was doing rehab and exercises very well. So one day she came to the OPD with this Ethibond in her hand, and which came out at its own. And after this, the wound, healed at its own. Infection, if present, it can present either acute, subacute, or late. Mostly it presents either subacute or late, and the symptoms are also not very, very aggressive symptoms. So you should have a high index of suspicion. So you should get the tests like C-reactive protein and ESR. You can aspirate and then start the empirical antibiotics and then plan for debridement. So in the debridement, be very aggressive, remove all type of unhealthy tissue. I always tend to retain the graft during the first debridement, and mostly, they get healed. But I think in 2 cases, I had to go in again, second time, to remove the graft. So this is how, like, all the unhealthy tissue is removed, and send the tissue and the fluid for culture sensitivity. And after the report of the culture sensitivity, you can give the appropriate antibiotics. One thing also here I want to mention that many times the culture does not grow in these patients. So I always tell my biologist to do the extended culture. So if you have a good protocol, the infection is cured in 100% of the cases. So this is our series. Out of 1,468 ACL reconstruction over a period of almost 5 years, 26 infections were seen, and the protocol which I mentioned, they were all treated with this protocol and they all healed. So this was published in 2018. Then stiffness can be there. So the first is to prevent it. There are some patients who get a very high energy injury. In those cases, we should use ice packs and delay the surgery till the knee becomes cold. And we should also try to identify the patients who are nervous, apprehensive, poor rehab, over compliant, over ambitious. You can have, the problems in these patients of stiffness. So patient selection should also be one of the, criteria to prevent these complications. And then for further prevention, we use the accelerated rehab program. Actually, on day 1 after the surgery, we get full range of motion. Usually most of the patients, they start doing SLR and full weight bearing also. So obtain full extension. That is the first aim after the surgery. This is day 1. And then obtain full flexion in day 0 to day 7. Usually on second or third day, the patients, they get full flexion. This is, the sutures are still on at the time of change of this first dressing. The patient is having full flexion. Similarly, the SLR also, So start practicing stat quads immediately after the surgery, and then on day 3 or day 4, the patient will have a full SLR. And weight bearing, again, depending upon the patient, sometimes I don't give brace to these patients now because the literature has sufficient evidence that giving or not giving brace does not make significant difference. So this is a case of typically arthrofibrosis. According to the Shelbourne classification, it is stage 4. I'll show you the complete case, who was operated 10 months back in a nearby center, and after 10 months, this is the flexion deformity. Even he is not able to get full flexion. While walking, he was too painful. So this is the MRI. You can see that there is suprapatellar pouch adhesions are there, and then fat pad is hypertrophied and fibrinous adhesions. Cyclops are there, and then posterior capsule is also thickened, and even the medial and lateral gutter, they are thickened and adhesions are there. So this is grade 4 of Shelbourne classification, and we went in and we will remove all the pathologies. So first with arthroscopy, we removed the cyclops, and then we did the notchplasty. So the anterior side was cleared. Then we gave 2 small incisions on the medial and lateral side. We cleared the gutters, as well as we did the posterior capsulotomy from these 2 incisions. And this is at 3 months follow-up. And again, this is a video at 3 months follow-up. He was a national athlete. So ultimately, he was able to go back to his games, but almost after the delay of almost 1.5 years. So full function. Heterotopic ossification can be another complication. This is one of the polytrauma patients operated by us with ACL reconstruction and PCL reconstruction. So there was heterotopic ossification. So we published the remnant bone debris as one of the causes for the heterotopic ossification. So it is recommended that after you have completed the surgery, spend 5 to 10 minutes in washing the knee thoroughly so that you can prevent this complication. If your screws are prominent inside the knee, then there can be a broken screw which can act like a loose body. So you should never leave the screws prominent. If the loose body is there, you have to remove it. Then immature skeleton, you should be careful. If the patient is, skeletally immature, always get the X-ray, especially the borderline patients. And if the epiphyses are open, take all the precautions of like making the vertical tunnel on the tibial side, and then the tunnel size preferably less than 6 millimeters. Use the soft tissue grafts, and then while drilling, try to be slow so that the heat is not produced, which can damage the epiphysis. And now I have also started using on the femoral side a tunnel from the posteromedial portal of the femur, so that the tunnel stays distal to the femoral epiphysis only. This is actually a standard technique given in the literature, so you can see the technique there. So finally, we should educate the patient about the risks preoperatively, so that he is also prepared and surgeon is also prepared if there is a complication. One thing I did not cover in the complications, because actually it's not a complication. If you miss the injuries like posterolateral corner or posteromedial corner or PCL, then the results of ACL surgery are not going to be there. So you should be careful actually before taking the procedure for ACL surgery. You should be familiar with all types of grafts and all types of fixation procedures, because intraoperatively, if you get a complication, you may have to change to the other type of graft and other type of fixation. So before you close, you should do a thorough clinical examination, see full range of motion, and do a thorough arthroscopic examination, wash out the knee well, so that there is no heterotopic plus this ossification. So we should be prepared. If you are prepared to deal with the potential complications, only then we will rise above the rest. Thank you.